Today I'm going to talk about very ridiculous news which was published in Times of India Goa edition on 23rd of March. It says India's response to Ukraine situation shaky, says US President. Now, these kind of news, I feel the Indian media has to become more mature and stop publishing these kind of news on the front page. These kind of news should be consigned to the dustbin which is never opened. Why I am saying so? Because Indian media is also getting carried away by the narrative of the Western media. Now, why I am so much vehemently opposing this piece of news is if India's response to the Ukrainian crisis has been shaky, I believe the response of the Western world has been more shakier. Now, I'll give you examples. Take the example of when Ukraine begged for aircrafts to fight the Russians from the NATO, and Poland was ready to give, but Poland had the condition that the aircraft have to be transferred to USA, and from USA can hand over to in turn to Ukraine. Then US developed cold feet. They never did this. They said we are not doing it. That response is shaky. I consider that response of US as shaky. I'll give you another example. When the US Vice President was asked somewhere on 17th of March during her press conference with the Polish President, how about taking Ukrainian refugees in your country, she laughed it off. That is the response which I consider as shaky, not Indian response. Now another example I'll give you. The whole of Europe has been buying, the Russian has been, government and Russian state has been, federation has been sanctioned heavily. The gas companies, the oil companies are being sanctioned. But the whole of European Union continues to buy the gas and oil from them. That response is shaky. But nobody is talking about these shaky responses. They are talking about Indian response being shaky. And when you ask them their response is in the interest of their country. They say it is in the interest of their nation and their people. If the response of European Union, if the response of US Vice President, and if the response of US government as such with respect to handing over of Poland aircrafts to Ukraine has been in the interest of these respective countries, then I am 1000% sure the response of India has been in the interest of Indians and Indian nation as such. So Indian response is not shaky. If Indian response is shaky, then response of USA, response of European Union, and the response of US Vice President is shaky then. But Indian media is not talking about it. They are talking and putting in front page the news or narrative of the Western world that the Indian response is shaky. Has anybody analyzed it? How can you say Indian response is shaky? Indian response is in the interest of the Indian nation. And India has been neutral so that India can talk to both the countries. That is what the Indian response has been. India has not voted in favor of any country during the UN resolution or this resolution being sponsored by any other country. And India has very clearly said that we are neutral, we want the whole conflict to be resolved amicably by discussion, not by fighting. That has been India's response. So India's response is not shaky at all. If India's response is shaky, then the whole of response of the Western world, the US, the European Union has been shaky. That is my contention and my perspective on it. Now coming to the Indian response being shaky, I have my opinion. I believe the health condition of US President has been shaky. I'll request in fact the medical fraternity of the US to look at the health condition of the US President. And I am saying so because I have got enough examples in front of me which shows that the neurological and physiological condition of the US President has not been good. Now, person of the age which the US President is definitely going to have some physiological and maybe neurological problems, which is very much normal for a person of that age. But those problems with the US President is not normal. You cannot have a president with these kind of problems. I'll give you an example. During the AUKUS video conferencing, the US President forgot the name of the Australian Prime Minister. How can he forget the name of a head of state of a country and call that person in video conferencing as that chap, rather than addressing him by his name Or if he has forgotten his name, you can always say the Prime Minister or the President of the Australian Union or the Australian state. You cannot call a person a chap. That shows the neurological and psychological state of the US President. Another example, when the US President was addressing the State of the Union address in March, or I believe on 3rd of March, he forgot and he called Ukraine as Iranian people. Now, I can believe it can be a slip of a tongue, but then you realize it, your mistake, and you correct it, but he never did it. So I believe the health of US President has been shaky, rather than he giving statement that Indian response has been shaky with respect to Ukrainian conflict. Another example I'll give you, he was interacting with media people and some other guests during his interaction in Washington, and when he was asked whether the Russian president is a has committed war crime, he said no. And then after some time, he recovered from his brain fade and he goes back and then says yes, he is liable for war crime. So this is the physiological, neurological and state of the US president. His health is shaky. I'll request the medical fraternity of USA to look after his health more, rather than looking after the response of India with respect to this crisis. The response of Indian government has been balanced, and it is in the interest of the people of this country, and these people of this country are not a small population. The Indian nation holds a population of 1.3 billion. So the Indian government has to look after an interest of 1.3 billion people, which is not a less number. So don't talk about, get carried away by the Western narrative, and I request the Indian media and the Indian audience to realize how the Western narrative is a fake and false narrative which is being propagated, and our media is further publishing it. Analyze their response and publish the news accordingly. Don't just give Indian response shaky as if the Indian government has done a crime. Whatever Indian response has been towards the Ukrainian crisis, that has been in the interest of this country and in the interest of 1.3 billion people. Please remember it. Let's all wake up and not get carried away by the Western media, who has been peddling all wrong perspective and wrong narrative with respect to this country. Let's all wake up. And I will request, there are millions and millions of Indians staying in USA and other countries. They should all wake up and counter this false narrative of the Western media. Let's all wake up to the fact which are in front of us, and let us not sleep. Even if we sleep, we need to wake up and realize the false narrative of the Western media. Thank you.